Hi guys, welcome back to Tactical Almost. So, like any hobby that has a sort of technical aspect to it, it is easy for the hobby itself and the people who talk about it, especially on YouTube, to sort of gravitate towards the more expensive side of things and the more pricey aspects of that hobby. And Airsoft is no exception. But today I want to steer away from that and talk about how to get into Airsoft on a budget. For anybody just sort of getting into the sport or anybody who wants to bring a friend into the sport, I thought it would be nice to talk about how to do that in the most affordable manner possible. So that's what I tried to do. I aimed for a $200 budget. $200 seemed about the minimum amount that could be spent without compromising on something that's really necessary or a piece of safety equipment. So that's why I chose $200. I ended up coming up with my own sort of Maslow's hierarchy of needs for this to figure out what was really necessary and what could be sort of added on later. If you're not familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it's kind of interesting to just look it up, but I want to talk about the Airsoft hierarchy of needs that I came up with. So my hierarchy of needs as it applies to Airsoft begins with safety. You need certain safety equipment to just get onto the field. The tier above that in the hierarchy is utility, just stuff you need to be able to play the game of Airsoft. Next above that in the tier comes bad time avoidance. These are just things that you really should have, but they don't necessarily make or break your airsofting day. They just help you not have a bad time. And then above the bad time avoidance tier would be the quality of life improvement tier, which is very broad and encompasses most of the things you just don't need at all. They're just actually nice things to have, and that is a wide range of things that I may talk about more at the end of the video. But first, with $200 in our pocket, let's see how far we can get into purchasing what we need to get out and play Airsoft. I promise you by the end of this video, there will be a listed kit that you can refer to. It will be just around the $200 mark, and you'll be able to get out and play Airsoft with it. Just a quick note, I bought all this stuff for this project in December of 2021. It is now May of 2022, so it has been about 5 or 6 months since I purchased this stuff. I always like to spend a bit of time testing things, especially new Airsoft guns and gear like that. So before I suggest them, it takes me multiple Airsoft days, multiple Airsoft outings, and ultimately multiple months to come to a conclusion about them. So that's why the 5-month delay. I will make a note of the price that I paid for it, and then I will update you with a more accurate price that you can get it for now, as of May 2022. So let's get started. So the first thing you need before you can even step onto the Airsoft field or even possibly get out of the parking lot is eyewear. You need some sort of eye protection to participate in this sport. No ifs, ands, or buts. That's just the way it is. And while I don't recommend going cheap on eyewear, it's one of the most important aspects of Airsoft. After all, you want to protect your eyes. No sport is worth losing your eyesight over. I ended up going with the Pyramex Highlander eyewear, which is this right here. It has an optional full seal aspect to it with this frame that can pop out. It is a rubbery foam gasket that really is as full seal as you can really get for Airsoft. I'm sure it would pass a pencil test of trying to, poke a pencil in from any direction. It also includes an optional headband that you can attach and makes this easy to keep track of. If you have a problem where your glasses fall off a lot, a headband can save you that trouble. It is elastic, so it's very comfortable, stretchy. These are really lightweight, and they are Z87 Plus protection. They even have a marking here just to prove Z87 Plus. I'm not going to go into full detail on the ANSI Z87 ratings, but just know that Z87 Plus is really what you need. Z87.1 is not enough. That will possibly protect you from maybe a hit, but you really need Z87 Plus. I have tested these with friends. These will withstand serious BB hits. They are extremely cheap. I bought this pair for $6.99 from Amazon, and currently on Amazon they are listed for $6.49. You can buy half a dozen of these. They're a nice solid eye protection. And they also come in cool colors. I prefer this cool sky red mirror color, more for outdoors because they are sunglasses, but they look pretty cool. I personally take out the foam gasket frame thing. That's up to you, your personal preference, and the field you're at. They may require it. They are not anti-fog goggles. There's no real such thing as that. They can fog on you. If that's a problem for you, you can try X-Fog, or you can try any number of the anti-fog products that you can stick onto the lenses and wipe off. Yeah, I've been pretty happy with these. They're really cheap. They protect your eyes. What more do you need? My only real complaint is that when you fold these up, the ears, these edges here, the tips, they do touch the lens, so they could potentially scuff it or scrape it after a while of keeping these folded up like this, but haven't had much of a problem with that so far. And if they do get scuffed up to a point where I can't see through them, $7 for another pair is pretty great. So yeah, so far we're at $6.49 for one of the most necessary items that you need. So this next one's sort of a gray area. It is simultaneously necessary to play airsoft, but it's also a utility. It is an airsoft rifle. You can't really play airsoft without an airsoft rifle. You can surely get onto the field and do whatever you want without one, but what fun would that be? So let's get to our rifle. For the rifle, I have gone with the CYMA Sport CQB-R M4, model number CM606. This thing is mostly plastic. You can really count the number of metal components on this with one hand, even things that I would honestly expect to be metal just because they're so ubiquitous, like the magazine release, the dust cover, the forward assist, stuff like that is all plastic on this thing, including the trigger guard. I can't list everything that's plastic because there are just so many things that are plastic on this, but that adds up to a really lightweight gun, and it still feels pretty durable. The plastic is a sort of molded polymer that is injection molded, has a nice finish to it, and feels pretty durable despite being so lightweight. The metal components are really the barrel and the buffer tube and the rear receiver sling plate here. So this is aesthetically and tangibly not a very fun gun because it is all plastic, but it is really lightweight. It has surprisingly good accuracy for what it is. I had no trouble hitting targets from distance. I never felt outranged. The hop up is really nice on this. It's listed as having an FPS between 380 to 400 with 2 gram BBs. I was shooting just around 1.5 joules, which is 400 FPS. It includes a metal high cap, but I'm using this random Lancer L5 mag just because it looks cool and matches the gun. The metal high cap is just a standard Stanag metal high cap. It's noisy, so I'm going to stop shaking it and just put it down. But the nice thing about a high cap is you don't need any spare magazines. Just run out there with 300 rounds in one magazine. I personally don't like high caps very much, but they work. So why did I go with this as opposed to any number of the other budget airsoft rifles out there? Well, it came down to a few different reasons. First of all, it comes with a flat top receiver, so you can mount any sort of optic that you may want to get in the future. But if you don't plan on getting an optic soon, the adjustable M16 style rear sight with a ghost ring rear aperture is really easy to use. It's one of the best rear sights you can get, honestly. This design is really tried and true. It also has a rail integration system for any future accessories you want to add to this, flashlight, laser, whatever. It comes with a vertical foregrip out of the box, which is always nice to have a handy vertical foregrip. It has 3 sling mounting points, one being up here, one being back here, which has actually multiple different places you could hook a sling to, like a single point sling, and then the standard sling loops back here. So right out of the box you can add a sling to it without any additional doodads you have to add. It's an M4, so it has all the modularity of airsoft M4s. You can put a new stock on it, you can put different flash hiders and barrels and handguards and grips. Everything is just easily accessible because it's industry standard. And then finally, I was considering with one rifle, what roles or factions could you play as and have the most utility, the most versatility. with that one rifle. With an M4 like this, you can easily be a private military contractor type guy. You can be a NATO antagonist, as these are getting into the hands of antagonists and opponents of the United States. Not that unrealistic to think a militia antagonist type guy might have something like this. And then a pro-NATO militia member might be armed from NATO with something like this. And then, of course, just a NATO member himself would have something like this. The fact that it doesn't have key mod or M-lock or some crazy super high-speed, low-drag handguard system just means that you have a lot of utility with this, versatility. You can roleplay as anyone you want to be with something like this. While maybe a Russian soldier would not have something like this, and a lot of post-Soviet comm-block countries would probably more likely have an AK. You can LARP around that with this really easily. Back in December, I bought this for $115 from eVeek.com. Currently, it is listed on eVeek for $125, but the black version is listed for $120. I would honestly have preferred the black version, but eVeek was out of stock at the time, so I ended up going with the tan. And for $115, I'm really not disappointed. It has performed really well. It's accepted most of the mags that I've tried to use in it. The internals sound fine to me. Just pretty surprisingly cool little gun. Also, in terms of utility, you can't play Airsoft without some BBs. I don't need to go into too much detail on what BBs you should buy. Buy the heaviest weight BBs that your gun will shoot. I ended up going for these biodegradable, eco-friendly 0.28 gram BBs. I would have gone with 32s, as I like 32s a lot, but they were out of stock at the time. This was December of 2021 after all. So I ended up going with these. They are Colt licensed cybergun BBs. Not much to say about them. It's 1 kilogram, so that's approximately 2,800 BBs. At the time, these were the lowest price BBs I could find on eVeek.com. You don't really want to go too cheap with your BBs. These have worked fine, and I have no complaints about them. I bought these for $14.95 on eVeek.com, and that's still the list price on eVeek.com. However, they are out of stock on the 28 gram BBs. But you can probably find something similar for a similar price. And 2,800 BBs should last you several days of play. If you've gone through 2,800 BBs in one day, you've gone through like 10 high caps. You'd probably run out of batteries before you ran out of BBs. Speaking of batteries, I went with the Tenergy battery pack combo. It is a 9.6 volt, 1600 milliamp hour butterfly mini nickel metal hydride, also known as NiMH, battery pack and charger for that. The nickel metal hydride batteries are a lot more forgiving and easy to maintain and use than lithium polymer batteries I've found, and ultimately they're just a lot cheaper. This butterfly mini battery fits perfectly in the stock of the CQB-R. The 9.6 volt battery is more than enough to power this CYMA M4. The semi-auto is perfectly adequate, and the rate of fire in fully auto is maybe a little bit slower than I would like, but not by much at all. It's perfectly adequate. I bought this set for $33.95, and that is still the list price for this on Amazon. So that's basically it for the safety and utility side of things. Now we're moving on to bad time avoidance items. They are just things that you don't totally need, but having them will help you not have a bad time. And the number one bad time I can think of is getting shot in the face or the teeth. That's just never going to be fun. So I bought a Matrix carbon striker mesh mask with integrated mesh ear protection in black. That's a mouthful of a title. It's really flexible. You can still aim down sights perfectly well with it on. It's adjustable, one size fits most, and it works under or over any headgear that you might wear. It's totally breathable. It's very comfortable. You get ear protection while still being able to hear everything around you with the mesh over the ears. It comes in plenty of colors and different camos. I bought mine for $18 on eVeek.com. The list price is still $18, but you can still find them in different colors for maybe a little bit cheaper. I know that tan is listed for $14 right now. So our total so far, if I've done my math correctly, is $189.43. as purchased in December, I stand at about $188.93. And then with tax, I ended up going up to $203.81. I know that's a little bit over. So if you're in a place where you don't have to pay taxes and you're not paying shipping, lucky you, you could be about $10 under your $200 budget. As for me, I was about $4 over. I'm not too worried about the $4, so there it is. If you still have a bit of extra cash left over, there are plenty of things to blow your money on. I would first start with the next bad time avoidance items, namely some gloves and some boots. Boots, you don't want to sprain your ankles. It's nice to really have that ankle support when you're running around especially in environments that you're not familiar with. It's really easy to trip and sprain an ankle, get your foot caught on something and tweak it. It's just good to have some boots. Some airsoft places also don't take place in the safest, cleanest environments, so there's stuff you could step in that could puncture normal shoes that boots could maybe protect you a little bit against. So like a gnarly sprained ankle or even a broken ankle, I would say is probably the second worst bad time you could have that's worth avoiding. And then the third worst bad time you could have is getting shot in the hands or cutting your hands on something. So boots and gloves, always good to wear. Neither of these things really need to be specifically airsoft or tactical. They can just be some old gloves you found in a closet or some old work boots, whatever. Just get yourself some boots and some gloves. And it's always good to have a hat. It's really easy to get overexposed to the sun without a hat of some sort. And it's good to have an extra layer of protection wherever you're playing, just so if you fall down or crawl under something or just turn a corner too quick, if you bump your head on something, you have that extra layer of protection, hopefully stopping any sharp objects before they get to your scalp and make you bleed profusely. And then finally, in terms of bad time avoidance, I would recommend knee pads. They are not strictly necessary. You can airsoft without them, but personally, the amount of times I take a knee behind cover is way too often for me to risk gouging my knee on a rusty nail or sharp rock or whatever. So I would go with knee pads just to avoid a minor injury to your knees that you could easily avoid. And beyond that, I would consider everything else to be quality of life improvements. Next things I would get are probably like a sling and a rifle bag. It's always nicer to have a sling just to easily carry your rifle around, and a rifle bag to transport your rifle to and from the field without arising suspicion or having the box that the gun came in the back of your car. Those are often very conspicuous, and it's just a little goofy to bring the box everywhere you go, but you can easily get by with just having the gun in the box that it came in and taking it around. And then even beyond that, you know, there's all sorts of tactical gear, spare magazines. It's always fun to reload, so having a spare magazine container that's not your pockets, but you can use your pockets too, and being able to swap mags is always fun, but that's all icing on the cake. So unfortunately, none of that's cheap enough to fit under the $200 mark, but yeah, those are some ideas. So guys, if you liked this video, if you found it helpful, please consider liking and subscribing. Consider sharing it with friends who are new to the sport or curious about getting into the sport. This video could help them in terms of choosing what they want to do. And leave a comment. Do you think I missed anything? What would your $200 airsoft budget look like? And if you know any other YouTubers who would find this challenge kind of fun or interesting, consider tagging them or showing them this video and getting their take on what their $200 airsoft budget would look like. I'm really curious to see what kind of budget builds people would do. Thanks again, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.